Welcome to Essential Ingredients, powered by NextGen Purpose. EI serves up thoughtful conversations with industry leaders and pioneers who support a regenerative future for our food system. The stories shared by our guests are meant to spark curiosity and inspire informed global change. Welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm your host, Justine Reichman. With me today is Alexander Olesen, who is the CEO and founder of Babylon Microfarms. Welcome, Alexander.
Thanks, Justine. Great to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so I am super excited to get to chat with you because, as I do with every guest that I bring on, I investigate them before I invite them on or before they, are recruited to come on the podcast, but I then do more due diligence before. And I was so excited to read more about what you have. In fact, I want one in my kitchen.
Coming soon.
Well, great. So, but before we get too in depth, in all fairness, we need to tell my guests and my listeners what Babylon Microfarms is, because people that are listening right now are like, what are these people talking about? So, Alexander, would you do me the honor of telling our listeners and our guests what we're talking about?
Absolutely. So at Babylon, we build modular vertical farms that are remotely managed by us. So what that means is we have these appliances. They look a little bit like a double door refrigerator that can actually grow fresh food for people. So they help people grow leafy greens, culinary herbs, microgreens, and flowers all year round, using 90% less water, no pesticides or chemicals. And these modules, we typically are putting them in sort of commercial food service locations, and eventually we hope to have them in people's homes.
And you know what I heard there? That they're managed by you remotely.
That's right.
You led with that. Very smart in my mind, because that means that I'm not going to kill them.
That is exactly the problem we've overcome. And for us, it's all about helping people grow their own food when they may not have had any experience, or they've had a bad experience, which is more often than not. So we're helping people who've never grown crops before be successful farmers in places that they never thought they could.
This New York City girl needs a little help with her farming.
You're not the only one.
That's good to know. Okay, so I love this. This is brilliant. So, okay, so what year did you start this in?
So we founded the company in April 2017.
Okay, so 2017, it's 2023, which I can't believe. So it's 6 years-ish, coming up on 6 years. What inspired you to start this business?
So we were originally researching low-cost hydroponic systems and the potential to deploy them in refugee camps as part of a project at UVA in the social entrepreneurship department. So we were looking at how small could a hydroponic farm be to feed someone, to sustain a family, or support a business. And that sort of gave rise to this idea of micro farming. And while that was a research project, we kind of ran with the idea and thought about what would it actually take to build a business around micro farming. And that was it.
Wow, so smart. And I love the fact that you manage it. I know that I'm focusing on that. That's mostly because I feel like I would kill the plants, and that would not be good. So I've seen a lot of these other ones that look similar. They're not the same. What's the main difference between yours and some of the others that exist right now?
Yeah, so I think it'd be helpful for your listeners perhaps. So hydroponics is growing plants in water. There's no soil involved. And it's much more resource efficient. So you can grow the plants 3 times more quickly using 90% less water, no pesticides or chemicals. And actually there's a thriving DIY industry. And a lot of what we see out there are kind of various countertop or tower systems that are really made of plastic. They have a pump and it's a DIY kit. And that's a thriving industry. And it's great to see that as a tool for people. What we're doing is applying technology to the equation to make it much more reliable and much easier. And so as a result, we run these farms remotely, so you don't have to do this little science experiment. And then we provide a service on top of that so that you receive little pre-seeded pods, you plug them in, you scan them with a barcode through an app, we take over and alert you when it's ready. So it is sort of elevating the concept and just making it even easier.
Smart growing?
Pretty much, yeah. We collect a lot of data and we're using that to make the crops tastier.
Smart growing.
That may already be taken, but I like it.
Hashtag smart growing, smart planting, smart something. I like it. Because I do think it's very smart. Are you investigating that right now? Just kidding.
As it was, so we are. It's literally a smart system. So we learn from the way we have an algorithm that administers kind of recipes to the crops, and we're able to analyze data from our farm fleet across the country and refine that algorithm to grow plants more effectively.
So I know that this was part of, or it came out of a school project, right? But why was this your school project? Like, nobody told you had to go investigate agriculture or create this for your school project, did they?
I guess there are two parts. So the project itself was looking at specifically the potential for hydroponics
Oh,
in
okay, it was.
food
They did give
insecure
you that.
regions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, they
That
did.
said, they didn't say go and create a micro farming business. That was us.
Okay, because no, I didn't know if you had a specific interest in agriculture, but it sounds like they had a specific request around agriculture.
Yeah, and I am personally very interested in it. And I think the intersection of kind of agriculture, climate, and technology is really something that I'm passionate about. And so is my co-founder.
So talk to me about that. So you started this with your co-founder. Was he a classmate of yours?
He was a classmate, and he's a biomedical engineer. So he had a couple of kind of electronic devices under his belt, and we teamed up to create this kind of remote management system that we thought would crack the code for this form of sort of distributed vertical farming.
Wow. So you guys have very different skill sets that you bring to the table here.
Completely different, and it's great.
That's great. So tell me, where do you fall in? What's your skill set here?
So as in, we're very collaborative as a company, but also together. For me, I'm focused a lot on the customer side, both the support, the sales, and just general kind of business development. And I have some very strong opinions on the product and service, of which so does he. And then he's much more focused on the software, hardware, and kind of general operations of the business.
So when you were in school together working on this project?
Yeah, so it was sort of outside of class time, but yes, we were at school together.
And so how did you guys find each other to come up with this?
So got to think, it's an organization called Hack Seville, which was a nonprofit in town, a sort of hacker house for entrepreneurial activities. And we teamed up on a few projects there that led to this. Yeah, it was very fortuitous. And we've been working together now for 6 years.
So in school, you came up with this project. Were you one of those kids that in high school and college were doing entrepreneurial things all along?
I think in hindsight, yes. Like, I didn't really think of it as a grand plan at the time. I'm like, oh yeah, actually, I was always sort of quite keen on trying to make money and trying to figure out solve different problems. And he was the same. He had an electronics repair business when he was like 14, and I guess it kind of had the bug. And together, with this, we've benefited from a kind of fast growing industry. And the fact we're doing something very different. So we were able to apply for grants and then eventually raise some investor capital, and all of that kind of helped catalyze this from an idea into the business it is today.
Wow, that's amazing. So talk to me. So here you are, you're young, you're out of school. What was going to raise money like without any, prior experience as an entrepreneur with this great idea? Were you intimidated?
I think at the beginning, but it's very much sort of, we had conviction in what we're doing. As I mentioned, we're fortunate the industry has really kind of reached a tipping point. So there's so much energy and activity there that we were able to ride that wave a little bit. And we had to learn a lot on the go to make it work. And if you see our pitch decks or our prototypes from 6 years ago compared to what they are now, it's pretty funny to look back. And at that time, we had a lot of refining to do. So it was one of those things we just got out there, spoke to as many people as we could, both on the customer side and on the investor side, and eventually the pieces started to come together.
Wow. So did you have mentors that you leaned on for direction and insight?
Yeah, I feel very lucky that throughout this journey, and to this day, some of them still around, at various stages, we've had people from, professors at UVA through to people we'd met on our journey that have really gone out of their way to help us. And at the beginning, for really giving us a lot of time and help. That's been great. Without those mentors, we would not be where we are today.
Are those mentors, I heard you say some of them are still around?
Well, they're all still around, but are they still involved in the company? We try to keep all of them super in touch, and we really treasure those relationships.
What would you say was the biggest asset to having those mentors?
I think in general, we're quite comfortable knowing what we don't know. and trying to find people who do know. And I think that generally makes things go a lot easier because, you know, we're very open about, hey, this is kind of where we want to take this thing. We don't know about these areas, whether that's, you know, manufacturing through to kind of some more technical sides of the business, and people are often willing to help when you come to them with something that's you know, relatively defined and something that they probably know a lot about.
Yeah, because I think it's really important coming from where you are to share this information with other young entrepreneurs, because it can be intimidating and scary. So for those other fellow founders that are listening that are young, is there a piece of advice you might give them, or something that you learned along the way?
Yeah, it's a lot. I think it's all a game of momentum, right? So as long as you have lots of different things on the go, you're maintaining a really high tempo of conversations. That's whether it's fundraising, customer research, or sales. You've got to just keep the momentum going. And that means that when you get the no's, which are 99% of the times you speak to people, it doesn't matter because you've always got more conversations going. So I think that's something that was how we started, and that's still how we do things today. And you know, being intimidated by it all is normal, but you've got to just get out there. And I think again, the nature is just speaking to people day in, day out, and trying to define, at least know where the North Star of where you're trying to get to.
Yeah. Is there anything that when you look back you would have done differently?
Oh my God, so many things. So many.
Okay, well, maybe just pick one or two things that you think really you would have done differently, you know, given what you know today.
Yeah, I think structured customer discovery and iterating based on that is key, especially on the software and even more so on the hardware side. It's that you've got to build things based on feedback. And, you know, at the beginning, you don't have any feedback. So it's all a bit of like, you're sort of educated guessing to a degree. But we've tried to build much more rigorous processes around that to avoid making any mistakes. Because the worst thing you can do is deploy something or put in the effort that people to build something, and then people say they don't like it, right? So you're just trying to minimize that. And that would be something that, again, we spend a lot of time on now that we probably didn't as much as we could have done in the beginning.
Yeah, I think, you know, there are many times we build what we think people want. Oh, they definitely are going to want this, but it's really important to ask them what they want.
Yeah, and I think there are challenges with that, especially because like I don't think people knew that growing their own food was an option, right? Other than like building a garden or building a farm, and I encourage people to do that. But for us, there is an education component. We're like, okay, so if it produced this much, if it was this size, this price, like, can you see that fitting in? And it's hard because you have to educate them along the way. And I think that's what we're finding now is as we install more and more of these things, people are like, oh my God, I actually really do like growing my own food. I have this little automated chef's garden in the corner of my kitchen or my dining room. And that's a huge asset to my culinary program, to my community. But people didn't really know it was an option before. So you have to kind of get the reps in and get the customer base excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, I think I can't wait to get mine.
Soon enough.
So I know you said you mentioned you have this co-founder. So, you know, I'm curious, what would your co-founder say about you?
Oh God, that's what specifically? There are probably a lot of pieces.
As his co-founder.
I hope I'm like not too annoying to work with. I think we've made it 6 years, so I hope he would say.
What would he say your biggest asset, your biggest asset is?
I think as in we're very complementary skill sets, very different. I think I'm very comfortable out there talking about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And that helps because again, as we're talking about, you know, you've got to get out there and talk to people all the time. And I don't have a problem doing that, which I think has put us in pretty good stead. And in the same way, I think he's a brilliant engineer and loves thinking very deeply about some of the challenges we face. And I think without that, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Sounds like you're a great pair.
I think so. I hope he'd say so too.
Well, I was going to ask you what you think of him, but you just told me. So how would people if they wanted to learn more about these Babylon micro farms, how would they learn more about them?
So I recommend checking out our website, babylonmicrofarms.com, and there you can see the product and case studies. We've got a lot of videos on YouTube, and then we're very active on LinkedIn and Instagram. So Babylon Microfarms on all of those platforms.
And if anybody wanted to find out how they might get one of these microfarms.
That is through the website. We're typically serving business customers, but we're always looking for new use cases. So reach out. We have a form there, and someone will reach out to you.
Great. I'm looking forward to somebody reaching out to me.
Okay.
All righty. Well, thanks so much for joining me today on Essential Ingredients. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you so much, Justine.
Awesome.
To learn more about these episodes and access show notes, go to nextgenpurpose.com and choose podcast. If you like this episode, head to Apple Podcasts or your favorite platform to subscribe and leave us a review. Visit the Next Gen Purpose YouTube channel to subscribe to our EI videocast and give this episode a like while you're there. Follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Next Gen Purpose, and connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Justine_Reichman. Thanks for joining us.